Welcome to Constant Variables, a podcast where we take a non-technical look at building and growing digital products. I'm Tim Bornholdt. Let's get nerdy.
This episode is sponsored by the Jed Mahonis Group. We build best-in-class iOS and Android apps for companies of all sizes, from funded startups to small businesses to corporate enterprises. We love partnering with our clients as their mobile tech expert, and you can see some of our recent projects on our website at jmg.mn, where you'll also find pricing for our services. While you're listening to Tim's conversation with Tom Spaniol, please take a second to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Help us out with a rating and review, and we'll thank you with a shout out on the show. Visit constantvariables.co/review and we'll take you right there. Or if you're using an Apple device, head to the main show page for Constant Variables within the Apple Podcasts app. And remember to leave your name or company name somewhere in the review so that we can publicly thank you.
Tom, welcome to the show.
Tim, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here today. I'd love for you to take a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about ZenLord Pro.
Yeah, so I'm Tom Spaniol, one of the co-founders and CEO of ZenLord Pro. ZenLord Pro is a full-service software solution for the independent landlord. We're available in all 50 states. We're really a one login, one solution approach and kind of helping landlords run every aspect of their business and, helping them scale over time with us as well.
I love it. I'm really curious to hear how you came up with that idea. I know before you founded ZenLord Pro, you were an elementary teacher and you built a SaaS company without much of a technical background, which is one of my favorite stories to tell on this show because it really proves anybody can be involved with tech if you want to take the time to learn about it. So I'm really curious to hear how you went about building a digital product.
Yeah, so, they say most great things are built out of inspiration or desperation. And so our story really kind of starts actually with my brother-in-law. He is our CTO. He's built this product and and one of the co-founders, of course, and he was in property management for like the last 10 years. So his really came out of desperation of he would try all these different online tools to help him manage his properties. Didn't really like what he was finding, and then eventually kind of taught himself how to code, started writing some code for his own little properties on the side, some things that helped with communications, a few things that helped with rent collection. And eventually he kind of saw this need to, there are these systems are missing for the independent landlord nationwide. And so we came together to really launch ZenLord Pro. So it was really out of his frustration and desperation where ZenLord Pro was born.
It's got to be nice to have a brother-in-law who has that technical background to help, get some of those ideas off the ground. Did you have any kind of properties that you were managing as well at the time?
No, I at the time was not involved with property management at all. So our third co-founder, so another person that was kind of from our hometown that we got together with, was his family has been in property management all of his life. They own 1,500 apartment units in the central Minnesota area. So those two really brought the kind of property expertise. And then I was more on the business side and helping with the fundraising and now, of course, doing everything else that a early stage CEO has to do, which is a little bit of literally everything except for writing the code.
Yeah, it's really interesting to know how you came out of your previous career and into this one. And you're right. Like when you do take on that role of like a startup CEO, you really are kind of just doing everything that people throw at you. And so it's interesting, like how all those pieces fit together. Like you've got someone with the technical side, you got somebody that has that property management side as well. And then you coming in and kind of filling in all the gaps. That's effectively how it shook out?
Yeah, it is. It was a really good self-awareness by John, our CTO, of saying to me that he knows property management and he knows software, but he's better used behind the computer. And this was his words, not mine, but he was saying we need somebody who can go be out there and help with sales, help with fundraising, help with marketing, and he knew I could do some of those things. So that's exactly how it shook out, that really with his self-awareness of saying, I need I'm the technical founder and I need a non-technical founder to help me with all of these different things that are just not in my area of expertise.
It's really a great insight on his part too, that you can't do everything all by yourself. You really can't. And especially if you need to be focusing on architecting out technical aspects of the system, you also can't all of a sudden shift gears and go to selling the app or raising money or dealing with customer issues. So that was very prescient, I think, on his part.
Yeah, no, it was. And most people they want to do everything themselves, right? Like, I want to own 100% of this company. This is my baby. I got to do it all. And really, like, we had those conversations early on that he understood owning a smaller piece of something big was going to be much more important, and beneficial for him than owning something, a large piece of something that ends up to be a small company, because he couldn't get it off the ground by himself. So that's such a huge thing that I think a lot of early stage founders are wary of. They don't want to give up too much, and this is their baby, but you really need to find people that complement your skills, that can do the things that you can't do. And of course, we're still early stage, and we're always looking to, like, where are we lacking? Because it's still a team of only two. It's like, where are we lacking, and where can we bring on people that can do what we both can't do?
No, absolutely. I mean, so being early stage, I would assume then, that you had to find a ways to be scrappy to get this initial app off the ground. So I'm really would be interested to hear from your standpoint of how you got the app from just the idea in your heads out onto code. Did you have to hire in more people, or was your brother-in-law really able to just kind of take that whole bag and do it himself?
He was able to do almost the whole thing himself. So he had a little bit of contracting development help to get our MVP or our first version out. But he really did essentially put that first one out himself, and it's a really great timing for this interview. We are actually launching our next version very soon. By probably the time that this recording is out, it should be launched, our version 2 of ZenLord Pro. And that has been built with the help of 5 developers. So it's going to be a whole lot different. But we were lucky enough. We stayed really scrappy, really bootstrapped. We only got the first version out with about $75,000 worth of funding. He built, early versions of the product just to get something out there to really get customer feedback. That was our big thing. It was to get somebody using it and then, get that feedback right away. How can we improve upon it? And that's what we've done over the last year and a half of, letting more and more people sign up. We improved on our first version, just him tinkering around. And then we finally came together, and we had enough feedback. We thought we started to get enough fundraising, and now we, have 5 developers working on it, and version 2 launching soon.
Having 5, going from 1 developer to 5 developers, I know is quite a leap, and there's a lot of different responsibilities. Then have you seen your CTO brother-in-law, I guess would be the right answer, right way to describe it. Has he been doing more management than development, or is he still like, how do you actually go from just a team of 1 to all of a sudden dealing with 5 people contributing into the code?
Yeah. So now he was a lot more in the strategic planning, right? Writing the roadmaps and everything, and then kind of managing their work. He is doing less development and more so management of those 5 people. And we've scaled up from those 5. We're finding them, they're contractors right now. They're not full-time employees. And really, we're finding them all over the world, just with how the internet and everything works today. It's a beautiful thing that we are working with developers from all over the world. And he's just scaled them up as they've been needed and as our funding has allowed. So it's been really cool to see him be able to transition from, hacking the keys every day to taking on more of that CTO true role of managing all these developers. But it's really worked well so far, and we're really excited with our progress.
That's awesome. Have you been mostly finding developers through things like Upwork, or where have you been going to actually track down freelancers?
Yeah, Upwork, you hit it right on. We have used Upwork, and it's been really, really good for us so far.
Nice. Yeah, I've been pretty pleased with the developers I found on Upwork. There's, 1 or 2 that you find that it's just kind of a front for somebody else, and you have to you kind of work your way through it. But if you hit those right people, you can really find the right team, and having it distributed around the world actually can be a pretty big benefit as well.
Yeah, and we used Upwork to do, they're the ones actually engineering like our version 2, but our full design of it was done from a different company who contracts kind of around the world. So we had connections to this other company, Xcube Labs is their name. We had connections to them through our VC firm that has invested in us. And so we use them for the design, and then just some things didn't kind of work out with the timing of some of their developers. And then we found people on Upwork, and it's worked really well. So it's been interesting for me, right, as a former elementary teacher, to now really get a glance behind how things are made, and just seeing this happen of what we're contracting with this company in Dallas who's actually contracting with developers in India, and they're building our software here. And, nobody even ever realizes this or knows this until, I blurted on a podcast. But right, it's just super interesting to me to really kind of get that view behind how things are actually made.
What do you think are some other things, like mentioning being an elementary teacher and having that kind of perspective brought into it? Are there other things that you found having a career and a life outside of tech and then coming into tech with that different perspective? Has it led to anything unique or any kind of interesting perspectives that you've also taken away from going from being a teacher into now being a CEO of a tech company?
I would just say, like, in general, I wouldn't even say the transition from teaching to doing this, but just like in general, realizing that, everyone is still just trying to figure stuff out. There was this great sense I had when I was a kid that everyone, once they hit being, I don't know what age, but when they're adults, they have everything figured out. And now it's, transitioning into this world of entrepreneurship and doing a lot more meetings and meeting a lot more adults in different spaces. And it's like, we're all just trying to build something and trying to figure it out. Nobody has life figured out. They hardly have their own product figured out when you really, get a glance behind everything. Everyone's just holding it together. And it's just very interesting kind of to see that. And then, it makes you feel a little bit better about yourself, and you're able to reflect of, we're not too far off. We've met with some, CEOs and different people in our space that look like they're uberly successful. And it's like, wow, we're doing the same things right now. These little tinkerings that I thought were, like shortfalls for us, or having a, early first version of our product that obviously wasn't that great because it was the first version. But, that was X, Y, and Z company 7 years ago, and now look at them. And it's really been kind of just that transition to me, kind of getting into this tech space, because when you're just a user of the products, you just kind of forget, and you assume that all products in every company was just great all the time, right? Like Airbnb, I use their app, and I just assume they've been perfect always. But they all had these interesting challenges to start and to overcome. So that's something that has really kind of given me perspective over the last few years of actually getting into this industry and meeting with the people who are currently building companies.
That is such a great point. I feel like that's my job a lot, is being an agency owner and working on, dozens of apps at the same time. I feel like I have to have these conversations over and over and over again of, your product doesn't suck. Like yes, there's some bugs, there's some issues, of course, like that, but every app has that. And we have, like, in our own internal Slack team, we have a channel that whenever you're using your phone and you come across a bug, you take a screenshot of it just to show, like, there's bugs in Gmail. There's bugs in just the iOS. Like, there's these people that have literally $1 trillion at their disposal, and they still have buggy software. Like, it's not it doesn't matter how big or small you are. It's, can you ultimately solve the problem that your customers are facing? And if you're able to do that, then it's, the spirit of software development is just continual improvement and making small steps forward to, a bigger and brighter future. But you don't just get there overnight. It does take a long slog of stress to get through there and get over it, and eventually ship something, which is the most important piece, I would think.
Right. No, you're really right. I mean, and it's sometimes, for whatever reason, right, it's just nice to have that permission or to see other people. So I really like the Slack channel that you guys have, to see big companies have their struggles, and then you're able to take a deep breath and say, okay, this is normal, right? This is going to happen. and we're really actually still doing something. We're building a company. Look at us 2 years ago. It really takes that sometimes to zoom out and see, how far you've come over a long period of time, and rather than just the day to day.
Yeah, it is really easy to get sucked into feeling like a failure, or feeling like the whole thing is for nothing because you've run into a couple of hiccups here or there. But it really does take a step back. It's not even just tech; it's like an entrepreneurial life kind of statement. You really do need to just get above the tree line sometimes and see how far you've come from day one, and just keep having the courage to show up and take another step forward the next day.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I think it's Tony Robbins who has said, especially this happens with entrepreneurs or business owners, but you're going to drastically overestimate what you can do in 1 to 2 years, and then drastically underestimate what can be done in a decade or two. And it's so true in entrepreneurship, right? Anytime people start something new, you think, you got this energy right away, and you're like, this is going to be huge. Like, we're going to do this. And then you're going to have these really tough things that happen in the first few years. And you probably won't get to where you wanted to be just in 2 years. But when you give yourself patience and really build something, you're able to look back over a decade and really, I understand what he's saying, that you can be so much farther than you ever thought you could be.
Yeah, it's never. What do they say? The days are long, but the years are short. It's similar, kind of concept where you really do have to see it as a long-term investment in yourself, and it's hard because a lot of times you look around and you see your competition, and you might say like, oh man, they're so much further along than us, and they've got this and that, and they've got a team of 40 people working on their app, and we've only got 5. Like those kinds of ways that we try to compare ourselves to it. But yeah, the struggles that everybody faces, it's right back to what you said. Like, everybody's just trying to figure this out. and even if they're a little bit further along than you, they're probably freaking out about the people that are a little bit further along than them, or they're freaking out about you coming along and eating their lunch and right. Trying to keep innovating. So it's like, I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast a while back with Chris Bosh, the basketball player, and he had a statement that he said his mom always told him was, if you were in a room with everybody and they were able to everyone could put their problems down on a table, you, including yourself, you would look at all the other problems on the table and say, I'm just going to pick up my problems. And I think about that a lot, because it's like you get so in the weeds about the struggles you might be facing in your business or with building software, especially. Like, there's so many problems, but when you compare what you've got to other people, if you actually were to take a look at what problems people have, you usually don't have it too bad.
Right. I mean, perspective is everything, right? I mean, even when I think back to my teaching days, sometimes I'll have these hard days of, things didn't go right, customers are angry, this or that. And then I'll have that perspective of, but hey, I got to work from home today. And like, hey, I didn't have to do the, wake up at 6:30 in the freezing cold of northern Minnesota and start my car and drive 30 minutes to school, and all these things that I didn't love about my teaching day. Right. And so perspective really, really is everything in any industry that you're in, to kind of just take a step back and realize what you have in life. And that's the most important thing. And so often gets forgotten about when you're building your own thing and there's so many people relying on you. But it really is super important to take a step back and just breathe and have that perspective.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't mean to go off on a huge tangent there, but I thought that was actually really insightful for me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Your product right now is web-based. What led you to doing that as opposed to jumping right in with doing a mobile app?
Yeah, so that was our CTO's decision right away, that he was kind of saying apps are a bit more restrictive, then you have to deal with Google and Apple's rules. And a lot of our customers actually, kind of do work on their desktops. So we just kind of made that decision early that we're going to be able to innovate better if we do this web-based, and it's not going to be a big hurdle to overcome. And over the last few years, it has not been a big hurdle to overcome. Every once in a while we get people ask, hey, are you going to have an app? But they can use it on their phone, with how well the new dashboards and everything are looking. So it hasn't been anything big for us to overcome. So I don't see us developing an app even in our company's future, at least not in the next few years.
I love that. I mean, you'd think I often say on the show that I'm the world's worst app salesman, and I think it's because of what you had just said. Like, for the most part, most problems can be solved with just using open web technologies and making a mobilely optimized interface that gets you most of what you need. It's when you get customer feedback that is demanding you to build a mobile app, that's when you need to start paying attention and figure out, like, okay, what are people actually going to be doing mobile versus if you already have a robust desktop app, you can't necessarily just say, we're going to put all the features into the mobile app and call it a day. I would imagine if you had customers clamoring, right, like then you probably would look towards an app. But for now, it's like, why bother?
Right. We would. But like I said, we've just gotten those kind of one-offs. Just, hey, are you guys going to do an app? Or, hey, what are you thinking about an app? Ever going to do an app? And it's just like, no, not for now. And our customers too, they don't interact with it, multiple times every single day, like many different apps. So it is something that they go in and they'll set up their properties or they'll use it for different aspects. But for the most part, they want to set everything up right with us and then kind of have to never check it for a long time, right? And get rent collected automatically and have things just happen automatically, have notifications go out automatically if their tenant's late on rent, things like that. So it's not something that our customers are, interacting with multiple times every single day. So it kind of doesn't make sense that they need to even have an app on their phone for it.
Oh yeah, and like app fatigue is a real thing. I can't tell you how many times I have to download an app just to get a coupon for whatever, and you're just then it gets deleted off the home screen, and I forget that I even have the thing. I would imagine, thinking of I own a house now, so I don't need to use an app like yours because I until I buy houses to rent, I guess. But from like the tenant perspective, it's like, yeah, if you can get it on auto pay, it's not like you need to go back for many reasons other than to maybe submit a ticket or whatever to get your landlord to come out. So why bother putting another app on someone's phone that they're not going to use? You can just go on the website and quick do it and you're done.
Right. No, you're exactly right. Even for tenants, a lot of them do sign up for auto pay. So the only reason they would even ever log into their ZenLord Pro account is what you just said with the maintenance ticket. They could submit a maintenance request to the landlord, or they can message their landlord. But still, those things are right, like 4 to 5 times a year, hopefully, if the rental property is ran correctly. Or it's right. If it's a nice rental property, you're not going to have too much go wrong, and you're just not going to need to communicate with your landlord, and then your rent's on auto pay. So we love when the tenants aren't logging in just from their perspective. That means that, everything is going well for them. Right. So it's kind of an interesting difference, right? With some people that, need their apps used multiple times a day. Ours is more, we want the landlord to just be very, very comfortable, set everything up, and it all to work for them. Let the code do the work and not necessarily them.
Yeah, I love that perspective of just getting people in and out of the app as fast as possible. Because I think a lot of times in this space, apps are designed to be more like slot machines and have that kind of urge to keep going back in and checking the app for things. And I think that there's the reason that people do that, I think, is to increase the more attention you have, the more you can sell ads against it or whatever your revenue model is to keep people in. But I'm curious how that fits in with your revenue model. If the whole point of the app is to not use it effectively. Like, again, if it's everything is going well, no one's using the app. What does your pricing look like? How have you built out the business side of things to make sure you're still collecting revenue off this thing?
Yeah. So we have a free plan and then 2 kind of upgraded paid plans. But even on our free plan, we will make revenue and capitalize on that. So we make money on rent collection. So the tenants pay the ACH or the credit card fee when they make a payment. And if the landlord chooses to not want their tenants to pay for the ACH fee, that's one of the features that the landlord can pay for on their side and kind of pay that fee for them as in one of our upgraded plans. We also make money from any tenant screening applications that happen, from electronic lease signings, and then some different features like the messaging. That's kind of an upgraded feature within our app. That would not be available on the free plan. And then we have some more ways to make money around payments, like with faster payouts. So you can get next day payouts. Tenant pays the landlord. It typically takes 5 to 7 business days to process, but you can get it next day, and that's an upgraded charge as well. So those were all things that we kind of played around with for the first year and a half. Some we knew exactly going in how we were going to charge, and then some of those, of course, came in with different feedback and whatnot. But it's pricing and figuring that out has certainly been an interesting thing. That's obviously why you build a product, to solve a need, and then of course to have your company be successful. But that's been a very interesting piece to go through, and obviously we're continually monitoring that as well. And pricing is going to change when version 2 launches and all of that. It's an ongoing, probably never ending battle, really.
No, yeah, it's always trying to figure out where you can put up if you have that tiered kind of a free plan and then more premium plans on top of it, it's figuring out where that paywall sits in between your feature set. So you get enough features to get people in and using the app and collecting bits of revenue here and there off of the free people. But then, that's always been an interesting problem that I've had to solve many times it's just like anything with app development, it's never perfect and it's always evolving, but just trying to figure out where that line sits between free and premium. I'm sure it's just been a constant back and forth on your side to figure out which features get given away for free and which features you have to actually pony up for.
Yeah, it has been. And some of it will slightly change, like I said, when we launch our next version compared to our first version as well. And things might change in the future as, of course, some of the partners that we work with, if their pricing changes or if we find new ones. So it will be an ongoing and never ending battle. But and of course, you a little bit, you monitor what your competition's doing too, is right. So that's kind of how we got there in the first place. A lot of monitoring competition, and then of course just looking at our own pricing that we have with our partners. And then, like you said, you just figure out that line of what is going to get people in, what will they pay for. And so far, it's worked out pretty well for us to have unit economics that we're very comfortable with.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned competitors, and I can see just there clearly the need for this app, and I'm sure that it's not something that you just innovated just out of nowhere in a moat with no one else also seeing this problem. Yeah. So I'm guessing you've got some competitors. I'm really curious to hear who you see as your competition, and then how you differentiate your service from what they offer.
Yeah, so like our main competitor when we first were building this was Cozy, and now they've been bought and they're apartments.com. But even one of their main things is like they're really good at listing your rentals and collecting rent. And then you're still going to need, we found that landlords are still going to need a few other like software services to help them, when it comes time to message tenants or when it comes time to message a maintenance vendor, things like that there was still just misses here and there. And so we really chose to be that one login, one solution approach and try to put everything in one spot. Of course, it's a tall task. There's probably a reason some of those companies didn't do it right away. Building all of those features is a big, big task, but we've just found that that's what people want in this space of, can I just have one spot to run everything? So yeah, Cozy or apartments.com has been a big competitor, Turbo Tenant. And there's a few others, of course. This space, some people see it as really crowded, but then the amount of customers that we have is also really kind of never ending. They say that there's about $500 billion of rent collected in the United States each year, and $375 billion of that comes from the small asset landlord. So that's somebody with 20 or less rental units that they kind of own those, and they're typically doing it on the side. They still have other jobs and everything. So they're not from just huge property management companies. And that's our target space. So of that $375 billion, when Cozy sold, they were only collecting about $1 billion of rent each year. So less than 1% of the whole market share. So there's still so many customers out there to be discovered. A lot of different reasons why that is, with kind of the age of most landlords and things like that, where now there's starting to be more millennials and younger people getting into rental properties that now they're looking for services. So that's where we really see that we can kind of capitalize, of getting in with these new rental owners, helping them own their first properties, making it super easy for them. They want everything all done in one spot. They don't have their ways set yet. like some of these older, owners who are still collecting checks and Excel files. So that's where, we're trying to set ourselves apart of use ZenLord Pro, one login, one solution. This is all you need. And you'll be off and on your way to, building your real estate portfolio.
Yeah. I mean, it's always fascinating to me, the people's view on outlook on competition. And there's there's a famous study of like the Starbucks effect, where when a Starbucks opens up in town, usually they open up right next to like a small coffee shop that already exists, and you would think that the small coffee shop would be instantly put out of business, but what actually happens is the people that come and notice that there's a Starbucks there then also see, oh, there's like a smaller chain, like a smaller one-off shop, and then they go and patronize that place. And so it's like kind of a rising tide lifts all boats sort of situation, where once you become aware of a problem, there's never a shortage on unique and creative ways to solve that problem. And that's what's really cool about software is it's like, think of how many like project management apps there are out there, or email clients, or note-taking apps, weather apps. Like if you ever go into the Apple store and you look at weather apps on the App Store, all of them get their data from the same place. It's literally the same data, because it's always the NOAA, whatever that acronym is, that puts out the weather data. It's all the same data, but there's like thousands of weather apps because there's so many different ways that you might want to see your weather. And so that's what's cool about what you're doing with ZenLord Pro is like, you've got a differentiator. You've got different little ways to that your style is going to mesh with, even if it's a fraction of 1%. I'm sure if you were doing $1 billion in transactions a year, you'd probably be pretty happy. And there's room for lots of people to come in and try to innovate on that space and make it unique. So I think it's a good way to look at competition is it's not necessarily like people, there are people obviously with capitalism. It's like I win and you lose sort of a proposition, but I still think that there's a way that everyone can kind of work together to at least get people off of using checks and Excel spreadsheets and onto using some like actual tools that are purpose built for making landlords and tenants' jobs easier.
Yeah, no. And the rising tide lifts all boats quote that you said, that's exactly, we had a conversation recently with a CEO of another company in our space, and he was extremely helpful and forthright in trying to tell us what's worked for him and everything. And he said that exact quote to us. Nice. And he's just like, hey, I want everyone in this space to succeed. Like, and we talked about those simple things. He's like, I don't understand why anyone is still using a check, or why anyone is doing things, why anyone would drive across town to sign a paper application, things like that in 2021, but they are, right? So it's like, let's get everyone using this. That's going to help, probably bring up the rental market even more because those are some of the hurdles that people are afraid of when they're even thinking about, do I want an investment property? And then they're thinking about these hurdles of, oh, how am I going to collect rent? How am I going to screen my tenants? How am I going to, even if I find the contractors, is communicating with them going to be a mess, things like that. And it's like, that's what these services are here for. And so as more of their friends, even if they heard about a competitor, they might end up finding us because of it. And like you said, yeah, if we start to even collect just a sliver of that, and we're collecting $1 billion of rent a year, which is one of our 5-year targets, we're going to be in very, very good shape. And our investors and everyone's going to be very happy. So which is funny because it's less than 1% of the market share. So it is a great space to be in, we think, even if you can look up all these different property management tools. Of course, we have our own niche, we think, and we're excited about the whole space in general.
I love it. You've mentioned a lot of cool features that your software does, and we've kind of talked about just looking at how you've got this upcoming release, obviously with version 2 coming out the door pretty soon. So I'm really interested to learn how you and your team think about determining which features you're going to focus on building first. Because I'm sure you've got a ton of things you want the app to do, but how do you get all of that down and then sort it so that you're kind of prioritizing which features get put in first?
Yeah. So version 2, at least I can speak to that, was kind of all the features that we had in our MVP, but made a whole lot better. So, our first version that just one developer released, everything was just a bit clunky. Sign up forms are too long. Things didn't just kind of work together the way they should in the software. So we're going to have a whole new, UI, UX design. Everything is going to be a lot faster, things like that. And then we just kind of went with each feature that we currently had. It's like, how can we improve upon this? Like the messaging. We had a little simple version that was built, but now we're working with a new company that can do awesome things like upload videos, upload photos. It can auto translate if your tenants speak a different language than the landlord. So things like that, we kind of went, how can we make this current feature that we have better for version 2? And then once version 2 is out, it's, we need some runtime on that a little bit. And then we have thoughts already, but we like to do some surveying as well. So that makes a lot of sense, I think, to talk to your customers, start to put out surveys of, are these features that you think you'd care about? What are we still missing? A little bit that way. And you can learn a lot like that, but it still doesn't solve everything, right? Like there's the quote of if Harrison Ford would have asked asked the customers back then what they want, they would have said faster horses. So, cars would have never got built. So it's a little bit of surveying is great to still find out what they need. And then we kind of just got to innovate on our own and just continue to pay attention to where the world is going and Web3 and what are the trends and how can we, most capitalize on everything that's happening in the space right now.
I think it's interesting with surveying. That Henry Ford quote always makes me laugh when I think about that too. And I think it applies in tech because when we do customer surveys or any kind of market research, you often the best insights come when you're actually trying to uncover problems instead of trying to ask for solutions or propose solutions and say, yeah, that's what I'd want. If you can really understand a customer's problem, then it's up to you as the company and you as the CEO to have that vision to say, all right, these are the problems that I think are going to be the most profitable to solve, and then really focus your efforts in on solving those specific problems and being focused to not get distracted by things that seem like, oh, it'd be cool if we had an app, or oh, it'd be cool if our thing had a drone attached to it or something. It's like those things are cool, but you gotta be focused on actually solving customers' problems, because that's what's gonna ultimately lead to cars being built instead of whatever juicing up horses to run faster or whatever.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like getting more organized on that front alone, right? So like our first version, we've had 1,300 people sign up over the last few years. That's been sort of easy for just John and I to, without really good systems, to pay attention, talking to our customers of where are we missing, right? But as you start to go forward and we start to sign up, hundreds or thousands each month, then we need better systems of like support tickets and everything of where are those coming in? So where are they having problems, and what can we fix and make better in there? So that's something we're certainly going to be doing with version 2 is getting a bit more organized on that front of, learning exactly our customers' needs and not kind of just hopping on the first, 2 customers that mentioned somewhere we're missing. Because I know we did a little bit of that early, right? It's like when you have just 10 customers, right, that are demoing it, and one person says something, you're like, oh my gosh, we need to make this feature for this person. And then it's like, oh, hey, step back. Let's get a bit more like organized on this and really think about, at what numbers do we need to see things? And like you said, really like dive into the customer's problems and then innovate off of that.
It's so easy to get distracted by one loud voice that's using your app and says the app needs to do this. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe, but also maybe this app isn't for you and you should go build your own app.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like I'm glad that kind of both of us have that perspective. There has certainly been, users we've had over the last 2 years that I've never told anyone to leave, but it's just like, hey, no, we don't do that. I'm sorry, but we can't meet those needs. And, if you find someone else that can, more power to you. But we are not going to change our whole app just for you. And you really have to do that, especially as an early stage company. It is very scary and easy to go off on tangents. So you just got to stick to your guns and not let, the single loud voice, like you said, sway you.
100%. Are there any resources or anything that really helped you out with kind of getting your tech idea off the ground, and especially from your standpoint, coming from like a non-technical background, were there any resources or books or podcasts or anything that you really leaned on to helping get the company started, but then also building like a tech company? I'm sure there were like other things you had to get up to speed with really quickly on to know how all this stuff works. Is there anything that comes to mind?
I just, in general, like paying attention to the space. And for me, paying attention to just kind of like the language that's used in any space that you're in. So it's like I started to pay attention to whether it be Twitter or watching YouTube videos or reading books like Venture Deals, when I was trying to really pay attention to like how to talk to investors. And it's like, first you just need to speak that language, right? You need to be able to understand what like a pre-seed company is versus a Series A and things like that. Of course, I'd never heard those terms like as a teacher. So I really kind of try to dive in and listen to things like that. Even the hilarious show that it's a comedy, that show Silicon Valley on HBO. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like, then I was watching that kind of while I was going through the early stages of this company, and it was really funny. Like, hey, I know this show is hilarious and it has great just entertainment value, but like they're really kind of showing those words, right? And the inner workings of a tech company, obviously very, comedy, but everything is drawn out and crazy. But yeah, so it's just I dove into more so reading and listening. I listen to Tim Ferriss a lot as well. Naval Ravikant has been huge for me. He's probably someone that I listen to the most. I don't know if you're familiar with Naval, but he's a huge, very popular in the tech space, early investor in Twitter, Uber, things like that. So just listening to resources has really kind of helped me, like I've been saying, speak the language. And once you can do that, then you can, better understand how to, sell your company to these people.
Silicon Valley to me it's been more of a triggering PTSD sort of experience, just having gone through this space for so long. Like the very first episode, like while he was trying to figure out like he had that big decision to make of whether to like leave or do his own thing, and he just like ended up having a panic attack and was in the hospital for it. Like that, it actually started giving me a panic attack, like remembering being like in a similar position in the past. So it is like that show. It is really funny, but it's been really helpful for me, like as a technical person, to explain to my wife, like, it's presented in a way that it is funny. And like, it's not like I watch it and the whole time I'm just like kind of neck bearding, nerding, being like, that's not how it works. Cause like, honestly, that's how it's portrayed on the show, besides maybe like the, when they were coming up with the algorithm behind the stage or whatever.
Yes.
I probably can't say it on this podcast, but that whole conversation, that stuff, that's real life. Like that's how this stuff gets built. So it's funny. Like you would think that wouldn't be a great reference for non-technical people to understand, but it is. Like I'd say that if once you have gone through it yourself, you can at least look back on that show and be like, yeah, that's a reasonable estimate of how this all works.
Yeah, and it's good to see like things like that it they're sitting there working in a house, and many people are like just working in the kitchen, right? And oftentimes companies have successfully been built in basements and garages. And for me, I think I said this in some recent the tech.mn article, and they kind of laughed that I said, like, we've had meetings on a pontoon. I thought entrepreneurship was going to be all of this, big fancy glass window offices and everyone wearing suits, but it's really not. Like, we've made big decisions, on the pontoon. We've had, plenty of meetings at, a dive bar and things like that. And this, like, it's just how it is, right? Every company is different. There's no like one size fits all in business in general. And so, yeah, shows like that and just reading and listening to different people, they really help kind of like I think I said before, like give you the permission that it's okay to do things this way or that way, because there is no right in this space. Like it's whatever works and whatever works for you and your company.
I love that. And I couldn't agree with you more about entrepreneurship being less about I remember most of the meetings that I have when they're taking place in downtown skyscrapers in big glass rooms. Of course you do, because that is really exciting to go into a lawyer's office and sign papers or do whatever, it's like part of the glitz and glamour. But frankly, most of my job is done like in dive bars or at like my case is mostly breweries, but it is just like hanging out and having these conversations and coming up with creative solutions. And most of the time, at least my creativity never has been, really sparked by sitting in a downtown office building. It's been sparked by going out on walks or being outside or being around other people and just talking and bouncing ideas off of. And that's the cool thing with entrepreneurship is you can make it whatever you want. Like if you see the way that something has been done traditionally doesn't work for you, then do it in a way that works for you. And then pretty soon people will start heralding you as a hero for doing something that's very obvious to you, but maybe just people are to get too caught up in the status quo or get caught up in the quote unquote right way of doing things that you can kind of really stand apart by just doing something that feels natural to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think there was a Gary Vee quote and he said, there is no right, there's only right for you. And I've really taken that to heart in all aspects of my life. But then especially like running this business, right? It's like, I could sit there and compare myself to all these other CEOs of different companies that I know, but that's right for them. And I got to do what's right for me and our company. So there is no right. There's only right for you has really stood out in my life in that regard.
I love it. That's a great way to end this. I appreciate you coming on, Tom. I'd love to give you a chance to plug your product, obviously. And if there's anything else, any parting words you want to leave the audience with here, now's your chance.
Just go check out ZenLordPro.com. I'm sure by the time this airs, we will have our version 2 out. Everything will be looking fresh and new, barring any setbacks. But, when I think this episode is supposed to air, we should have our new version out, and we're very excited about it. So check it out at ZenLordPro.com or on YouTube. Just type in ZenLord Pro. You'll find us there in some of our demo videos. Well,
Tom, thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you the best of luck with your second release here, and I hope that people go out there and give ZenLord Pro a chance. And again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, Tim, thank you very much for having me. This was awesome.
Thanks to Tom Spaniol for joining Tim on the podcast today. You can learn more about ZenLord Pro by visiting ZenLordPro.com. Show notes for this episode can be found at constantvariables.co. You can get in touch with the show by emailing hello@constantvariables.co, or you can find it on Twitter at CV_podcast. Tim is most active on LinkedIn, so connect with him there if you haven't already. Today's episode was produced by Jenny Karkowski and edited by the superb Jordan Doust. As I mentioned at the start of the episode, if you can take 2 minutes to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, we'll give you a mention in a future episode as a thank you. Visit constantvariables.co/review and we'll take you right there. This episode was brought to you by the Jed Mahonis Group. Check us out at jmg.mn.